RBG immediately went there, asked Trump lawyer how Whitewater and Watergate were different from tax return case. Now, it's also important to note that in all of those cases, almost all of those cases actually involved cooperative efforts, Strawbridge said. As the court recognized below, consent is not the measure of constitutionality. In none of those cases was there a challenge to the scope or to the power of the legislative committee in that case to request those documents. It's different because in Whitewater and Watergate they cooperated. Got it? Just hook this up to my veins. Principal Deputy Solicitor General Jeffrey Wall, representing Trump as a government official, made a separate attempt to protect Trump's tax returns by asserting that sitting presidents are held to a different legal standard. How'd that work out in the Paula Jones case? Ginsburg quipped. Good. Half of the entire premise of Trump's lawyers' claim is to ignore United States v. Nixon. The other half is to strip constitutional powers away from the legislative branch. There's a reason why these cases were ruled against vehemently in the other courts, and it's kinda ridiculous that the SC even took the case, but if they don't rule in Trump's favor, at least they have helped him drag his feet. Here's the major difference between now and then. The Federalist Society was not around in '74, so while some of the judges on the Supreme Court were staunch Republicans, they weren't radicalized zealots like they are now. Trump's lawyers responded that Watergate and Whitewater happened too recently in history, so they don't count. Seriously, with respect to Watergate and Whitewater, obviously, those are cases of relatively recent vintage. And in separation of powers disputes, this court has generally, such as in Noel Canning, looked back for a much longer precedent for the type of issue that needs to be decided, with examples of the encroachment on the separation of powers. And the recent examples, there are just a handful of them that the House identifies, are too recent under that stricture, as the court recognized in Southwest General. What I find so dangerous about Trump is that he's not just merely pushing the envelope of executive powers. Rather, in every single case he's advocating for the most extreme possible thing. They subpoenaed his financial records to see if he's compromised. I used to have a top-secret security clearance. My complete financial records were taken to get that. It's utterly astounding that someone could become the president, a position that requires the absolute highest security clearance with a need to know basically anything and everything, without handing over these records, yet, I, as an 18-year-old private in the Army, had to give over mine to get access to security codes for communications equipment. The only way this is personal is if it gets out that he's not a billionaire and or is guilty of financial crimes, his reputation is on the line. It's ridiculous that this made it all the way to the SC. Edit, grammar. Edit 2, so he doesn't require a security clearance, but that doesn't change the fact that he isn't immune to scrutiny. We've got fascists in here calling me out on a technicality. They get to be wrong about literally everything, but may the gods help me if I'm wrong about even one thing. To be clear to people reading this is an incredibly basic question. Wasn't meant as an attack at all. She's asking the attorneys for the president if they can meaningfully distinguish the cases for precedent reasons. i.e., is the president arguing a loophole, or is he arguing that the prior cases were wrong? And now watch as a group of stalwart constitutional originalists find nuance in the unambiguous term "shall furnish." I'm guessing the lawyer insulted her and ran off? I mean, that's what the president would do. If you don't want RBG to be replaced with a Trump bootlicker, you need to vote him out in November. From the Current Front NYT article. The justices' questions mostly reflected their usual inclinations, with the more liberal members of the court expressing skepticism of Mr. Trump's arguments and the more conservative ones saying they were worried about opening the door to partisan harassment of the president. Oh, so they've been living under a rock for 12 years. Those two involved water. This issue has nothing to do with water. Completely different. Because they were held accountable. Trump's lawyer, objection. RBG, on what grounds? Trump's lawyer, that question is devastating to my case. It's mind-blowing to read the comments. Right-centric commentators openly wishing for RBG to die. It just shows that the Republicans have completely abandoned their moral compass. They are morally and ethically bankrupt, and the American people are going to pay a truly horrible price in the end, no matter what the outcome of this particular case is. It seems clear by their actions that Trump and the lead Republicans in the Senate are committing sedition, as well as treasonous behavior with other nation-states that are clearly no friend of the USA and haven't been for a long time. Personally, I don't think doing your job honestly is going there at all. It says a lot that Supreme Court justices are making the news for drawing the direct comparison between two things. It's kinda like when people write CNN reporter slams Trump for lying about testing. Like, no, they were doing their job as a reporter and questioning the president. This should be the norm and not the exception. Insane person, makes insane claim. Sane person, how is insane claim true? Insane person, more insane claims, plus accusations, and bad faith allegations. You can't engage with these people. It makes for good headlines, but nothing productive will come out of it. The most dangerous man in the country right now is Bill Barr. This should not be a partisan issue. If a Democratic president is legitimately corrupted by financial obligations to Russian gangsters, I do not want the legislative branch so hamstringed that they can't do anything about it. I don't want a fucking tyrant as president. Doesn't matter if it's a Republican, a Democrat, or a Flurkin. I would like to know precisely where in the US Constitution it says that a sitting president is held to a different legal standard, like his sleazy lawyer says he's supposed to be. How this doesn't sound like total horseshit to anyone is fucking beyond me. Knowing Trump's lawyers, they probably just showed her a meme. Love her. RBG is a fucking rock star. We are not out of the woods until Biden has taken the oath of office and the new Democratic Senate has sat. The GOP will, sure as shit, try to ram through a justice during a lame duck session, regardless of the rules they talked about before. If and when the court upholds the subpoenas, I find it difficult to believe he would comply. I doubt he even understands what the SC actually does in the first place, and he certainly wouldn't respect their powers even if he did. The framers set up this government with the expectation that integrity was paramount in our leaders. Put a grifter in there, and you'll end up right where we are. Barr can just decide to let Flynn off. Fucking traitors, the lot of them. From what I gather, Trump's lawyers did a really poor job of making their case. Can we still expect a 5-4 win for him? Probably. Just keep in mind, come November, there's a strong possibility you'll also be voting for her seat on the SCOTUS, and possibly Breyer's as well. As much as you may not love Biden, whatever your progressive agenda you wanted from Bernie, or Pete, or any of the other Democratic primary contenders will most definitely be pushed back by 20 to 30 years if Trump's able to place one or two more hyper-conservative Kavanaugh-type judges onto the SCOTUS. Conservatives have been adept at keeping this sort of thing in mind at the ballot box, and it's high time liberals and progressives do too. Yes, let's argue with the Supreme Court justice about how it's up to the president to interpret what the law means. They surely won't see the hole in that.